Hey, welcome back to the JMach Podcast, where our mission is to make veterans great again through community involvement. And I'm your host, JMach. Thank you for tuning in. Together, we can conquer our mental health one step at a time. I want to thank our sponsors, TRC, Total Roofing and Construction, and Arizona Organix, Arizona's first legal dispensary. Please like and subscribe, and remember that your mental health matters. You're not alone. And enjoy the episode. All right, welcome back to the JMach Podcast. Today I have Charles J. Flanagan. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thanks for welcoming me, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming out here, and I can't wait to hear your story. So let's just dive right in. What was your childhood like?
Childhood was a little different than most. I originally grew up in Anaheim, California.
Okay.
And then, I was living with a single mother, going through a lot of stuff, getting in a lot of fights. And so my mom was like, at this point, you need to move with your dad. So I moved to the Pacific Northwest to Kirkland, Washington, which is the origin of Costco. And I went from a melting pot of diversity to being the only black person in my town, for the most part.
And how was that adjustment for you?
It was tough, man. California being this hub of diversity, inclusion, just everything in substance, to going from just being kind of like the outlier, And at that time when I moved to Kirkland, it was, in the early 90s? So, being African-American and the cool thing, it wasn't all that cool. So there was a lot of ridicule at first. It was kind of a challenge. But then, later on, you had hip-hop. You had the immersion of Tupac and things like that, and then everything kind of evens itself out.
I can't even imagine how that was, to be honest with you. But I'm sure it probably was terrible as you were going through it, but it probably built some character.
Oh, 100%.
Some strength. But you said you went from fighting to living with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
But was there more fighting with your dad because you were the only African-American?
So, I'm sorry about Taz. That's my... with my pops, the thing about him was he's super structured and rigid. Being with him was giving me the guidance, the framework of how to be a man. Like all the ins and outs of being a man. So he more or less gave me a kind of guidelines on if you fight, these things need to be adhered to, right? So I can never start a fight. I always had to finish it, and that was a big prerequisite. If there was a fight involved with my brother, and I was watching it, if somebody jumped in, I had to get them. It was very much, a code of honor that, he taught us about fighting. It wasn't something that you just, whimsically do. You don't just start fighting everybody. You have to have a reason for it. So, it was the best thing for me to do, to live with my father and just learn structure and guidelines.
What would you tell somebody that's going through that same situation you went through? Like, what kind of guidance could you give them?
The thing about it is that, what I've realized about racism and ignorance at this point is a lot of it is just misunderstanding. People just don't know, like those kids that were saying those awful things to me at the time. They weren't bad kids. Later on the line, a lot of those kids ended up being really some of my close friends. They just didn't know who I was. So, it's often whenever we meet something that's foreign, we meet it with resistance and fear. So it comes across as hate and something else, but, they just didn't know me. So I cautioned him, if somebody doesn't know you're going through some of the same things, because we have bullying, we have a lot of these things, get to know the people.
So besides getting to know them, or how did you get to know them to help break through fighting the stigma and being the outcast?
Athletics was a large part of my life, and with athletics, there wasn't, I wasn't always the best communicator as I am now. I couldn't always articulate my feelings. So through athletics, I was always able to excel. I was always the fastest guy, one of the strongest guys, jumped the highest. So that kind of helped me, communicate when my words couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were your sports?
I played football. I played basketball. I don't even know what you say. I played basketball, and I ran track.
Okay. So, what are some of the key things that you remember from your childhood that you still carry with you today?
Looking back, there was so much. I was a very nervous kid, but I think that now that I reflect back, I just had an amazing childhood. Like, I think that looking at what these kids endure now, it's so tough. I long for a lot of the moments. I long for the fact that there was no internet. The mall culture was huge, so that was one of the rites of passage where we got to communicate and learn everybody, get numbers, meet and intermingle. This generation now, they don't have that. This generation was raised entirely on the internet, and you think about COVID, they've been completely detached for a whole year So a lot of these kids, this generation now, doesn't even know how to communicate. They don't know how to socialize. They don't know how to do the thing that you and I are doing now. It's funny. It was so impactful in China that they're now giving classes on teaching children what a smile is, how to smile.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they lost that orientation, and that was the thing that was hard for us because when you're formulating yourself as a young person, you need to see emotions. Emotions are, kind of the conduits that let you know how to communicate. So for that whole year that we didn't have that, they struggled.
That makes sense. And I also think you brought up a good point because in your childhood, you could escape the racism in a sense. You could escape the hate and all that because you would go home and you didn't have the internet that was following you. And like as soon as you log on, people were attacking you yet again. You got to go home to your dad and your brother and a safer environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And the thing about it too is that it's not as, I think there's a lot of aggression. I think that the problem with social media now is that it's easier to get validation. Whereas when you and I were coming up, to get the validation, you really had to do something. You really had to get accolades, And the way you received it then was, you got written up in the newspaper, right? That's how you got them then. So now with these kids, everything is so easy accessible, right? To get likes, to get, attention, you don't have to do much. And that's the sad thing, you don't have to do much to get and garner attention.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you do after high school?
So after high school, I ended up getting a track scholarship my freshman year, and I had an amazing year. Freshman year was awesome, but in the interim, leading into my sophomore year, I got into a car accident. And the car accident was so bad, they thought I was going to die. I lost my scholarship. It took me 6 months before I can, stand, balance, and function. So it was a pretty dark period. I ended up getting into the car business. In the interim, I had nothing to do. Idle hands are the devil's plaything, so I had to find a way to occupy my time. So I ended up getting into the car business, which starts on my next trajectory, and I was in the automotive industry for a good decade and a half.
So that had to be very detrimental to your mental health, being on a scholarship, having a great year, and then an accident's taking it away from you. Mm-hmm. What did you use? Well, first of all, what road did that lead you down? Did you fall down the devil advocate road, or did you? Okay.
So at that point, a lot of depression. Everything that I had made myself up to be was going to be this big track star. I was going to the Olympics, everything, right? And when that path was halted, I didn't really know what to do. It was great to have my pops. My pops was it's just motion creates emotion. So, I just took a lot of little side jobs and worked a lot. It helped me kind of clear my thoughts, but it kept me active so that, the depression wasn't setting in. And I always kind of kept, that goal set that I wanted to compete again on the horizon. I always kept that, on the horizon. I'm going to get back.
So you were able to keep that, you're going to get back, and that's what kept you from falling too deep into the depression?
Yep. And then, the other thing that is the biggest thing that alleviates depression is money,
Yeah.
I'm a young kid, and I'm in the car business. I'm making $8,000, right? I don't come from a lot. Everybody else had a lot around me, but, you get your first $8,000, $10,000 check as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. It's game-changing, But then that, again, that leads down another, slippery slope of excess and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, which, I'm sure that we're going to get into.
Right. Let's dive right into it. Did you go into any negative coping mechanisms that you realize now after your accident?
100%. 100%. Not so much after my accident. My accident was, again, I'm still, a minor for the most part. And, I'm early, I'm 18, 19, I'm living with my pop. So I have still a structured environment. I think when the wheels fell off was when I, joined the corporate workforce and I started in the car business. You have other people, you have other mentors, good or bad for whatever that is. And they teach you the ways that, you learn their ways of success, but you also learn their ways of detriment, right? So That was when I learned unhealthy coping mechanisms. When I had hard days, when things were too much, we need to turn the noise off. You had our go pills, and that was when I got into my Xanax addiction.
Okay. And how long were you in that addiction for?
8 years.
What helped pull you out of it?
The laws started to get really, really stringent. It was no longer I can call my doctor and they send in the script. You had to get blood tests. You had to get UAs. Every single time, you had to see a clinician or a doctor before you get in a script. Your scripts weren't able to be filled for another 2 weeks after you had them. So the addiction that I had, which was, I was taking probably, if anybody understands Xanax bars come in 0.5 milligrams. They go all the way up to 1 milligram, right? I was taking 12 milligrams a day, drinking quarter of, a fifth of vodka, the whole thing just to be functional. And I wasn't able to sustain it. Without my fix, I couldn't go out of the house and just, interact with people. And that was scaring me. I'm like, I can't even, what's going to happen? So it got to a head when I couldn't get pills anymore. I thought I was going to die every day because of the way my body was starting to shut down physically from, just the amount that I was consuming. I thought, either one or two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to, do this to where it kills me, or not being able to have it. Just the feeling, because I was having these, I call them palpitations, but they felt like heart attacks, right? And I thought I was just going to die. I thought that one day, I wasn't going to wake up. I wasn't sleeping at all because I literally thought that I was going to die.
That had to be hard. And you went through the withdrawals all by yourself, or?
Yeah. I struggle a lot. I asked my doctor, and this is the thing that, why I'm such an advocate. Because I'm being a personal trainer, model, the whole nine. I've always been on the advocacy part of health and wellness, right? Never any drugs, never any medicine, all natural. So when I took those pills, to me, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm taking everything that my doctor gives me. There's nothing that I'm doing wrong. And I think that's the guise that the majority of us live under. Majority of the people who are doing what I did live under that guise. There's nothing wrong with it because my doctor prescribed it, right? So I'm asking my same doctor, I'm like, hey, I heard about the more naturalistic, more natural pathways. What do you think about these? Oh, no, those don't work. Especially for you, those don't work. That's the wrong thing to do. So, when I finally came to a head, and I, stopped with the pills, and I'm like, I'm going to die, right? I'm either going to die or I'm going to get my way through this. I talked to a few friends about cannabis, and again, at that time I had no understanding. I, took my first drag. And my brother had it, right? My younger brother. But it palated a lot of the feelings. It wasn't like Xanax, but it was like Xanax. And what I mean by that is it took the edge off, but it didn't do any of the other horrible things, right? Like after it was over, I was able to maintain, I was able to sustain and interact, whereas Xanax took everything from me.
Okay, so how soon after you were done taking Xanax did you start using cannabis?
So I floundered around a lot, like with most people, because I'm a big person on control. And when I did it, I metabolize things. I'm a type A personality. So everything that I do to a large degree is in excess. So when I started on my cannabis journey, I went hard, right? And when you do that, it's always too much for people because you don't know your system. You don't know your dosage. You don't know how to medicate effectively. So I was like, nah, this isn't going to work for me. It's just not going to work for me. So I stumbled around a lot. I started taking edibles, which was the first way I did it because I didn't want to smoke because of all the stigma. I didn't want to ruin myself for running or health. And that took a little bit. So it was the first year after that, after going sober from pills, it was primarily just edible consumption. Then I got around a few people and they started to kind of educate me more on just the different variations, trip profiles, all that kind of stuff. And then I got into smoking, and that's where I've been from there on. And then I worked at a dispensary, so that, sorry to throw that in there, but that kind of helped ramp up my acumen, my education on the plant.
Do you have any lasting side effects due to the amount of Xanax you were taking that you can recognize?
No. That's the one thing that I'd say that's amazing about the human body. You can literally put this thing through hell, and you can rehabilitate yourself, and it will fully recover and restore itself.
Okay. And then another question, did you ever get back into running? Did you ever get back into that competing?
So I was never able to get back into competition for the simple fact that at the time that, when I told you I made the transition in the car business, I was making a ton of money. So, the money became the driver. When I wanted to go into the Olympics, half of it was because I wanted to run and compete at that high level, but the other half was because I wanted the monetary accoutrements and everything that it came with. You know what I mean? So then once I started having those, the money, the cars, I was getting a car every year. I was a finance director. I was literally the top of the top. You couldn't get any higher than what I was. There was no desire for me to go back. I continued to work out and train, but no desire.
And did the money ever lead to a detriment to you?
Yeah, the money is always, man. Money and excess is always the root of all evils. With money, you got friends, you got attention. You also have access to other things that you shouldn't have access to. The circle that I hung around, they weren't like me. They were all came from money. They were all like trust fund kids.
Okay.
So when I went on the town, you're talking about $30, $40, $50,000 nights. You got strippers all around you. Sorry, it is what it is. You do lose context of everything because everything you find out at that point can be bought.
You feel like you were invincible at that point?
Oh man, 100%.
And what made you realize that you weren't invincible?
Those same guys that I was hanging out with started dropping dead.
Okay.
Yeah. The overdoses, DUIs. They were put in prison, for a lot of the things that we did that we should have never done.
So after the car business, are you still in the car business? So how did you transition out of the car business, and what did you transition into?
So my last tenure in the car business, I was a finance director for a Lexus store. And when you're in that, it's fully immersed. You're working the hours on the window. So from open to close every day. And being the finance director, you're the fiduciary for the bank. You're the backstop for everything. So everything starts and finishes with you. So, I was working just 80 hours plus. I never saw my kid, never saw my old lady. I had a nice car, but the only time I saw it was when I drove home and drove to work. So my kid, was growing up. She's getting older. I started wanting to teach her in track, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this. They're never going to give me that time. So the group that I was with just transferred ownership, and they just got bought out, and it was like my out, because I didn't want to do that, and I decided I'm just going to take a sabbatical and just start coaching my kid. So my kid was like 5 at that time. I started coaching her, and it literally was the best thing that I've ever done. Taking all those years of training, running, everything that I know, tutelage, and then putting it into a 5-year-old container. You know what I mean? Yeah. And seeing how that works, it was amazing. Probably, man, best experience of my life.
I can't wait. I have a 3-year-old and 11-year-old girls, and I can't wait until they start playing. I'm not going to force them, right? But I hope they play softball.
Yeah.
Because I played baseball growing up, and I would love to teach them, or at least just to be able to play catch with them.
Yeah.
And then I also have an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old. And the 11-year-old and I play catch football all the time, but I never played football growing up. But it's still fun, playing catch. I love that cohesion and that family unit that comes with it. But to be able to teach and share my knowledge and my passion for the game, I look forward to having that opportunity. And I feel like that will be a great motivator for me to continue to do better and be better as a person. So after that sabbatical and training your daughter, where did that lead you to?
Oh, this is coming to the high point of my story. So I started coaching kids in general. When I coached her, Arizona is very big in the track scene. I don't know how many people are aware of that, but they're very big. Lots of competitors, lots of national level, Olympic level sprinters and jumpers come out of Arizona.
Because you can run all year long, huh?
Run all year long, right? So from that standpoint, I started coaching her, but I started getting the eyes and attention of a lot of other parents, So then, a couple parents reached out to me, and I started training their kids, and then slowly but surely, I ended up having a track team. My track team did the most amazing things. They did things that, I could have never, ever dreamt of. I have a junior Olympic record holder, a national record holder. My kids are Nike All-Americans. We'd go to meets, we were 6 deep, and we would just crush. There were kids that were begging their parents, hey, can we just warm up with them, Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Where did that lead you to?
Well, it led me to my sobriety. So the thing about me is, I've always had that performance thing, that performance driver. Winning is the only way, and losing is failure, right? So with kids, you can't have that mentality. That fixed mentality is a death mentality. You have to always be in a perspective of growth, because with every loss, you learn. I was so scared of them losing because it was going to be exposing on me. So again, you got to understand, I'm still drinking. Not taking any pills, but I'm drinking heavily, I drink at the meets. I thought that, people didn't see it, because what I did was I trade the pills for the alcohol. I'm still an addict. I still have to figure out how to live with the condition that I have, which is anxiety, depression, right? So that's my dis-ease. So I'm drinking a ton. We're winning meets, we're doing really well, but I'm always just so concerned that, they're not going to be able to perform, and it's all going to come back on me.
And that drinking probably amplified that shame, or the shame that you were concerned about feeling.
That, it convoluted the emotions on the things that were really going on. Like I was so out of touch. Like I was stressed when I shouldn't have been. They did the most amazing things, and I was always just overwhelmed. I never enjoyed it. Like it was the best time of my life, and I didn't get a chance to enjoy it because I was always so worried. So here's the catalyst. Here's the where it all came to a head is that I looked up to my kids. I've always been this kind of figure, and I always wanted them to be or emulate Coach. And so one of the parents told me, he was an ex-NFL player, and he's like, hey, let's have a talk. I'm like, yeah, let's have a talk. So he starts telling me about when he was in the league, one of the things that one of his coaches told him to do is always carry peanuts. I'm like, yeah, carry peanuts. He's like, yeah, you know why you carry peanuts, Charles? I'm like, nah. He goes, because peanuts mask the smell of everything, right? Like, so your strongest alcohol, your vodka. What are you talking about? Brother Charles, I didn't want to say anything to you, but it's been brought to my attention. The kids, they smell alcohol and you at practice. That whole ideological, that whole image of what I thought I was broke. All the kids that, that I wanted to look up to me and admire me, now saw that I'm an alcoholic. The whole persona was done. I crumbled, bro. I was like, man, I gotta stop. So I went on my trek for my sobriety, and once I got sober, they were the first people I apologized to.
That's I don't know where I want to go with this. There's 12 things I want to ask you at once, and I'm only going to remember one. And yeah, I actually don't even remember any of them right now. Sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, so you attribute going sober from alcohol due to the child's parent talking to you, and then, okay, I remember. Do you feel like that fueled your imposter syndrome? Do you feel like you had imposter syndrome? Like, you believed yourself was this person, and then they saw, you're still actually that person, but they saw who you were because you thought you were a certain way because of the alcohol?
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
Everything about what you said makes sense. The imposter that I was trying to hide was exposed, right?
Right.
It was exposed. Like, you're not the guy that you try to be, and then it was exposed that this alcoholic remained. Everything that I thought I wanted to convey to them wasn't conveyed. So once that happened, the wheels came off, and I had to really take a hard look at myself because, you lead by example, and that's what I thought I was doing. And if that was the example that I was leading by, that you can, drink and you can compete and you laugh and you lie to people that you love and care about, that's not the example that I need to set. And then what I understood was I knew where they were going. I knew what they would do. And I'm like, you know what? I need to be that role model that sets the example, that sets the tenor now, so.
Right. And when you apologized to the kids, did they meet you better than you expected? Was it a better outcome than you expected?
Yeah, the kids were awesome, man. I'm trying not to break up, but they were like, Coach, we love you. We just love you, Coach. So, yeah, the kids were awesome, man. They were awesome.
I asked that because I feel like a lot of the times that when we realize we did wrong or we need to better ourselves in something, what holds us back from doing that is the shame that we feel we're going to get from somebody else or the person that we're affecting, right? But in return, when we finally are able to better ourselves or fix the problem, that person is going to respond to you in a much better way, 9 out of 10 times usually, than you truly expected, and that we've only heightened the negative outcome that we thought was going to come in our head, and in reality, they were actually supportive of you. And they still looked up to you even during that time. They just knew some things needed to change.
Right. The biggest lies are the ones that we tell ourselves. They're the ones that we know. I'm okay. Nobody knows. It's cool. It's not that bad. I'm not addicted. Whatever that is. And you're absolutely right. The thing that I'd say is that transparency and vulnerability is the biggest aphrodisiac. You want people to like you. You want people to respond to you. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be authentic. And then you'll see what real, emotion and reciprocity when people convey that to you looks like.
What did you end up replacing alcohol with?
So what I had to do is when you become an addict, you get stuck into a way of thinking. It's a mind state. So I had to recreate that. I had to, replace one addiction with another addiction. And what I realized was what I was addicted to is not loving myself. So I went on the opposite side, and I started really caring a lot about who Charles was. Really caring about who Charles was.
I want to dig into that. That's something I'm working on, going from not loving myself to loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's helping this podcast be better as well.
100%.
Right? So what are some tools and tips and tricks that you could share on your experience and your journey of self-love?
The thing that kind of kept me in that perpetual cycle of abuse on myself was the fact that I wasn't understanding, that, this human condition, this thing that we're going through, nobody really knows it. We're all trying to figure it out as we go along. So just being understanding, that you're trying to figure it out, right? And really liking myself, man. For a long time, I didn't like who I was. I didn't like what I was. I dreaded every single day, and now I don't do that. I'm super glad. I'm very fortunate, to be who I am, to be where I am, to have the people, that I'm connected to,
How do you talk to yourself?
With a lot of understanding now, more so. Now, like, I do. I really, it's a lot of understanding. I always have this open narration between me and me, we can do this. I'm always my biggest cheerleader because you do internally. There's so much study about how important internal narration is, what it does, speaking words of affirmation, all that. So yeah, man, it's a lot of affirming words, it's a lot of, self-coaching, self-loving myself consistently. Whereas before it was always the bully, bro. I was the big bully. You suck, man. You never do anything right. You can never. Now it's like, man, I'm so proud of you, man. I love you today, Charles. Like, I'm happy with what you did. Like, man, you're doing it, man. Like, look at us.
When you first started to change the way you spoke to yourself, did you feel like you were faking that? Like it was all lies and then you had to... That's where I'm at. Like, I'm starting to believe it, but it still feels like it's a lie and it's a forced way of speaking. And I know that's because I have like 34 years of negative self-talk, and now I'm trying to replace this with this positive self-talk, and it's just not normal or natural yet.
Right. It has to be repetitive. It has to be no different than the negative self-talk was. You have to be very habitual, very intentional about it, and consistently doing it. Eventually, that negative guy, he'll work himself out. I'll tell you probably the even better thing about it is now I'm so acutely aware of that when that negative self-talk starts happening, I'm like, whoa, what are we doing? Because think about, one of the best things that I did is I kept a log of what I thought, my internal narrative. So every single time I had a thought, I would write it down. And then when I did after a week, I looked that up. I looked at all those things that I thought and said about myself. It was crazy and sad. If anyone ever talked to me like that, man, there's no way like I would ever let that fly. I wouldn't let that ride. But every day, man, I was saying the most horrible, awful things to myself.
And the way that you talked to yourself and treated yourself, how did that reflect in the relationships or friendships that you had around you at the time?
A lot of them really, really grew. They prospered. There were some relationships that I was struggling with that, I was able to have a breakthrough in because I started to care about myself, not hate myself. And that separate deprecation, it was felt. Like when you have any kind of communication with somebody, they can feel that. Like we're emotional people, The laws of attraction are huge. So what you put out, like people sense. So I noticed it like tenfold.
Did you lose a lot of friends during that time?
You know what, man? I don't know if I can say loss. I think that, I don't know if you lose somebody, if you can ever really truly call them your friend. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but the realest people in my life have never been lost. We may not talk all the time, but they're never lost. The people who are lost were never meant to be there.
Right.
And I think that was the hardest thing that I had was trying to keep people in my life that didn't have a purpose.
And then when you quit drinking, did people look at you like, dude, what's your problem? Like, you're not drinking? Like,
I still do.
Yeah, I hate that. Like,
yep.
I have the problem because I'm the one that's not drinking, but you're about to make a fool of yourself.
Yep.
Like, come on now. Like, that's where we got to be better. Like, why does it look like somebody has a problem when they don't want to drink? Like, you should be supportive and encouraging. Just because you're afraid, that's it. They're projecting.
It's exactly what it is. Misery loves company.
Drinking.
Absolutely. Misery loves company. Like, can you imagine? And on the other side, I remember one of my buddies, he quit drinking. And I saw everything change. His complexion, he lost a ton of weight. Like, he just looked amazing. He was literally glowing. And I'm like, whoa, man, what are you doing? And I remember trying to like throw him off the path because I couldn't do what he was doing.
Right.
That was the only reason why I was trying to throw him off the path. It had no reason because I didn't, like I just didn't want to be miserable alone. I was so used to my boy drinking with me and being in the trenches, and then when we both started doing it, he's like, man, I'm so proud of you. Like, this is a much better version of you.
It is, So I have gone on multiple sobriety kicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were for fitness in the Marine Corps. And then after I got out, I actually quit drinking for 2 years. And the reason I started drinking again was for this podcast, because I thought I could not talk to people and I would be able to have a better show if I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I quickly didn't just drink during the podcast. I just continued to drink throughout the day.
Right.
And I don't say I'm the traditional alcoholic where I need to drink, but I'm the one where I'm like the Pringle cans, bro. Like, once I pop, I don't stop until I wake up with regret, remorse, depression, whatever the fuck I did wrong.
100%.
How much I spend, where's my car at, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I let that go for maybe like a year or so. And then the last time I drank, I was actually proud of myself because I didn't mix anything. I stayed with nothing but Bud Light. I woke up so depressed. I was like, dude, this is not for me anymore. Like, something needs to change. So as of January, I hit a year sober.
Congrats, bro.
I'm currently like 3 days completely sober. Like, I even stopped smoking cannabis currently. My mental health's not where it needs to be, and it's a growing process, but I'm trying to improve it even more without needing something to cope with.
Right.
I want to be able to learn how to cope with my emotions on my own. And I don't feel like I was addicted, but I do know that I was smoking more than I needed to sometimes, right? And so I don't feel any different. I don't feel any negatives from not smoking for the past 3 days. I know it's also only been 3 days, and I don't know how long I'm going to go. This is just a journey that I'm trying to figure out myself, learn myself more, and, maybe cut out some munchies too.
Yeah. No, I love what you said, and I can relate that. The thing that's tough about, cannabis consumption is that I really liken it to insulin more or less than I say alcohol, because you have a system that helps you regulate. You have an ECS system that helps your body consume, and deal with cannabis, whereas we don't have anything that allows us to deal with alcohol. Like, if you take too much cannabis, your body, you have your receptor sites, it's just full. You can't consume anymore, and you pass out. If you have too much alcohol, you'll essentially build a tolerance, right? Where your kidneys, liver, everything will be able to sustain it to that amount, but it's still liver toxic, still like heavily toxic. And then after a while, your body will literally, you can't contain that, and you will die. Cannabis has never killed anybody in years of consumption, but it's been demonized and bastardized because of the fact that it is. So, right now, what I tell people, and I'm so big on the advocacy. Right now, I consumed before I came here. Like, with my depression and anxiety, like, I can't go out. Like, without that, there's no way I would have been here. I would have called in. I could barely talk because I'm very high functioning. All my thoughts are going a million miles a minute. That's what made me so good in the car business. When people were thinking of reasons to say no, I had a million reasons to say yes. And I was excited to use them. But the problem is, like, you want that to shut off. Like, I don't always want to be going. I don't always want to be on.
Especially when you're trying to sleep and then all these thoughts just keep popping in your mind.
Racing, ruminations, and all that. Trying to save the world, trying to, help your family, trying to, do all those things. But yeah, man. And the cannabis was, like I said, it was always my gateway, to control and to normalcy. So like when your journey, whatever that looks like, bro, do it on your own. That's what I love about this journey. But never feel like the cannabis thing is a controller. There's never any what else was I trying to say? People talk about withdrawals. There's no withdrawals, there's no bad side effects, and like I said, in a million years of usage, it's never hurt anybody.
Right, and like you said, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to fall asleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like about cannabis. I don't know. Yes, cannabis can be overused, right? So it's no longer going to be beneficial. There's been times that I have either smoked too much or had too strong of an edible, and I just got paranoid and anxious, and like all the anxiety came in tenfold, right?
100%.
But that's where I struggle with my control and like my addiction, right? Like I have an addictive personality, so I just want to go, and go. But like the thing I have noticed about not smoking is when I lay it down at night, my brain is still going a million miles a minute, and I'm starting to think about like everything. And it's usually like things that want to piss me off, things that want to make me mad, things that want to make me look over at my wife and just be angry with her. But like, why?
Right.
You know, like that shit's in the past. We've worked through things, or like, who knows if that's even just this fucking story that my brain's playing, right? Like, that's not necessarily how life played out or what the scenario truly was. But like, now that I'm tired, the devil's sneaking in. Right,
100%.
like you said, idle hands, like an idle brain, bro. Like if I'm laying there, that's where I am struggling a little bit, I would say, because like the past 3 nights I just been like thinking crazy and just like crazy thoughts and just constantly going. But one thing that I have been trying to force myself to do is like when I catch myself in that spiral, I'll call it, I start repeating to myself, I love myself, I'm confident, powerful, I'm worthy, I'm deserving, as something along powerful I am statements
100%.
until I get so tired of saying that to myself I pass out. And then I'll wake up again and I'm like, why can't I just stay asleep? And I also didn't realize that my brain was thinking like that because I haven't been smoking. I didn't think that until I'm connecting the dots now.
Yeah.
So I think the I am statements are what's gonna keep helping me and keep me from trying to smoke at night, you know? But we'll see where the journey takes me.
Yeah, no, man, I love it. And you know, the reason, like I said, I know that on my end, I am like you, I'm very type A. I consume way more than I should. But, you know, I also have, like, I'm an aggressive, I'm a, you know, very dynamic person. So I think that, you know, what do they say? It suppresses ego, but it suppresses a lot of that. Like, there's a lot of my guys that were, you know, they were ex-military, they're, you know, ex-football players, and they have that in them, and it suppresses it. You know, like, I feel like it's the dickhead suppressor, or it's whatever. Like, my lady, you know, everybody who knows me, they like it allows him to be him. It makes him very cool, collected. Like, and I know it's hard to tell. Like, I'm a very cool guy, but inside here, there's this dynamic thing that
you're just
always
ready to
trying
rage, right? Like ready to fucking Hulk smash this table. Like, give me a reason to fight you.
What I always tell people is the dichotomy. Like, you hear my voice and you hear how soft it is. There's always the opposite. Like, because inside there's something that's very dynamic, very loud, and just whatever. So, you know, I use that to kind of hold that. You know.
So when I got out of the Marine Corps and the first time I took an edible, I was going through a heartbreak, right? I didn't know the medicinal value of it. I just knew. My dad is a retired cop, right? So that shit's the devil lettuce. It's fucking bad. But I was like fucking hurt. I didn't want to drink, even though I probably did drink on it, you know? But I remember the first night, like I was crying over some shit, the edible kicked in, and then I started laughing about what I was crying about. And I was like, oh shit, I can process this now. I'm thinking about it. I mean, it didn't make it easier when I woke up in the morning, but at that moment, I wasn't depressed to sadness. I'm sure, obviously that depression was still there, right? But I was able to manage it and put a smile on and actually be happy.
Right.
And that's when I started to realize, oh shit, there's something to this more than just...
So the part that you talked about is you were very acutely aware of your depression, but like the sadness wasn't stifling, right? You couldn't, you know, and that's what I think happens to a lot of us. You know, I told you about my daughter. I haven't talked to my daughter in a while. This has probably been the hardest time that I've gone through in my life, right? In 44 years. And my consumption is just so that the sadness doesn't debilitate. Like, I don't, like, because sometimes it's so bad where I can't move. So, like, to your point is I'll smoke and I feel everything. Like, I feel the longing for her. I feel her. I miss her. But it's not debilitating. I can still go out. I can still do things. Like, it's very much top of mind, but it's not beating out of my chest. Like, man, there's days that I sit in my house, man, where it's just, I long for her. I cry, whatever, and then I'll take my puff, and then, it'll start to dry up, and then I can go throughout my day. And I think that's what a lot of us long for. Like, it's been a rough couple years for the world, right? With, COVID and just a rash of things that have been going on. Alcohol consumption went up, but cannabis consumption went up too, and I would definitely liken it to people trying to deal with everything that's going on in this world, right? There's no right or wrong way. There's just a way. One of those ways, takes you off commission. You drink too much, you're not going to be able to function. But one of those ways, you'll be quasi-functional. That's all. That's the biggest thing that I try to advocate for. And then the other thing about it is that, for those people who have children, which way do you want your children to go? Realistically, do you want them to go down the path of alcohol consumption? Because it's never like you think. Alcohol control and, moderation, stop. It's neurotoxic. It does a lot of things, so you never know which way that's going to go. Or do you want them to go cannabis?
Right.
You know, what they show is that early or youthful consumers, they don't continue on. There's only a few of us, like a few of them that, you know, smoke weed at an early age and continue to smoke it on, but they don't find any detriment to that. Cannabis is that thing that when you do it at a youthful age, you might have tried it and then later on you pick it up. It's not like alcohol, whereas it becomes alcoholism. It becomes a condition of your way of existing.
Right. Like, it is crazy. Like, when I quit drinking, it's almost like I had to quit going out because I didn't know what to do going out anymore.
Right.
Like, if I'm not going to the bar drinking, what am I going to do today?
What are you going to do?
Right. And, like, no matter what you would do, you would always pregame. Right.
You just said it, pregame. My boy's like, you know, well, what am I going to do when I go out? Like, what am I going to do if I go out to the bar or I go out with friends? I'm like, enjoy yourself.
Watch all the fools.
Right.
People watch.
Right. But he does not know how to do that. Like, this guy was an NFL athlete, you know, he's first round draft pick, and he does not know how to function without alcohol.
I would say that I was there too for a while, for sure. And, like, again, I would go back to that. Like, I'd feel shy if I wasn't drinking, but then if I was drinking, I could be a fool and I wouldn't even care. I'd be having the time of my life until I woke up.
And in your head, you're like, man, I'm Johnny on the spot. You know, everybody likes me. But like when you look back, like when I thought that bro, man, it was that term that the kids use, cringy. Some of the things and the way I was, like I've seen some videos, and I'm like, man, I was a dick. I was horrible. Like, I was horrible to the women around me. I was horrible to my friends. Like, one of my boys, like, I've known him, like, since we were in 3rd grade. You know, I went back home, like, last year, and, you know, like, I told his mom, you know, I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm sober. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you were drinking. I'm like, yeah. He's like, he was a bad alcoholic. I was like, he's like, yeah. He's like, Mom, I'm so happy that he's sober. I'm like, bro, why didn't you ever say anything to me? You know what I mean? He's like, I don't know. You know, I was like, wow. You know, he's like, yeah, but I was scared for you all the time. He's like, you come over, and I'm like, but in my head, I thought it was being cool. I thought I was being the guy who was out drinking everybody else. I thought I was like, you know, the badass, like Mr. Ladies Man and all that.
Yeah. And then, but the worst part is, like, when you do tell people, like, yo, bro, you might want to, like, check your drinking, they now look at you like you're a fucking asshole.
Yep.
And, like, who are you? But I'm going to go off of my personal experiences. When people told me that, I'm not going to talk for other people, right? But I feel like they were judging me. Like, dude, I have no problem. This is my life. I'm in control. Let me live how I want to live. I don't need to live how you want me to live. But, man, my life would have been so much different and healthier if I would have just listened to the people, the select 1 or 2 people that were telling me that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You know, I remember, I don't know, I think like maybe a few people would have said, but I don't really remember anybody because I was like the fun guy. I was always buying people. I was trying to get everybody out. So I think that it was more, and I made a post about this, everybody supported that habit. You know, like this, my sobriety, nobody supports my sobriety.
100%.
Everybody supported my addiction. Like, hey, you want to go out? Let's go out. You know, what is Charles doing? Let's get him out. Like, you know, I remember times when I was just trying to like clean out, like, because I'd had the shakes of how much I consumed. Oh, come on, let's get him out. You know, like, nah, keep him at home. He needs to stay at home. He needs to recover. But, you know, I always had to be, what was that? FOMO, fear of missing out. I always had to be where the action was at.
And you wanted to be the life of the party.
Yeah.
And spent way too much.
Yeah.
For too little to show for it.
You know, the best times that I've had were without alcohol. They've always been like whenever I think back and you have your little reflective thoughts, you think about fun, but really think hard. Like the fun happened before you were out of your mind. Like when you were kind of tipsy, you started and you first got to the bar, right? And it didn't happen when you were shithouse, like blackout drunk. Never happened then. And like why we don't get that, I'll never understand. But it's the general populace that's under this guise.
It's really crazy to think about. Like you said, do you want your kids to go down the cannabis route or the alcohol route? And like preferably neither.
Facts.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I try to think back like, dude, there was a time before I knew what alcohol was or how it made me feel. And like that's what I want to get back to because I didn't need anything. Like right now I felt like I needed something to live life, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just living and feeling and seeing life. So like something broke inside me in a sense where I felt like I needed a substance. Mm. And of course it started off as alcohol because that was the easiest thing to get. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then it was also like the most acceptable thing.
Right.
And then eventually I realized alcohol just brings my demons out way too much. So I switched to cannabis but still it's almost, I don't want to say I need it because I don't want to say I need it, right? But it's also weird going out and not smoking too,
Right.
because I'm like, everybody else is going to be on a different level, and I don't want to deal with drunk people sober. You know what I mean? But yeah, I want to get back to where I don't need anything. I could just be happy living life without consuming any substance.
Right,
Just
right.
drinking some pure H2O on the rocks.
Sheesh, wouldn't that be awesome? You know, it's weird. I kind of venture. I go back and forth. The thing that I like about this is like I went to Austin and I had a podcast that I did, and there's no consumption. So I had nothing, and I was freaking out. I'm like, yo, am I gonna die? You know, because I had to get on the airplane, go through TSA, like all that crazy stuff that my anxiety just flares up about. And, you know, because I've been really big on like my meditations and just understanding like this is a part of my journey, I was cool.
I'm really proud of you for being able to do that.
Yeah.
But to relate that, I had dental work done yesterday, and the last time I went to the dentist, I had a tooth extracted, and it was like the worst pain of my life. It just didn't go well. My body rejected the I forget what it was, the injection that they gave me, and it was just a lot of pain. And I was sitting in the dentist office yesterday, and he told me that he was going to give me a bridge and start grinding my tooth down. I started to get like really anxious, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then I became aware. I was like, oh shit, I feel this way because the last time I was at I used to love going to the dentist.
Yeah.
That little dentist light puts me to sleep. Like I'm not afraid of the dentist like most people were. And but I think awareness, my old boss used to tell me awareness is $1 million word. And it's so fucking true, because as soon as I became aware of why I was feeling that way, I was able to like talk myself down. I didn't meditate. Probably would have helped me. But like I was able to like talk myself down and like, okay, this is why it happened. So I calmed down, and I was able to go through the procedure without any problems. So just being aware of ourselves and our actions.
Yeah, there's a few guys, you know, like and again, I'm not to that level of in my meditations, but they're so good where they can literally cut out, you know, all pain or, you know, anything like that. So to your point, you know, whether you were, focus meditation, you were in some kind of meditative state to allow you to deal with what was going on with you. You know what I mean? And all meditation is, you know, in the simplest terms, is just focus, concentration. You know, it's nothing else. Like everybody does it. Like you see a basketball player composing himself, getting that composure before a shot. That's meditation. You know, you see, you know, an older Asian man walking down the street. He's doing walking meditation. You know what I mean? There's so many different variations, and I think that, you know, Western society is, you know, added so much anecdote that we've lost sight of really what it is. It's just trying to compartmentalize everything to be able to focus.
Yeah, what makes it very hard for me to meditate, or at least my excuse is, I can't stop the thoughts from coming. They just keep coming and coming.
That's what meditation is, bro. That's it. You don't want to stop them. You get to the point where you're able to feel them coming in. Like, that's life, man. That's the human condition. You're never going to be able to stop the show. Like, when those thoughts stop coming in, man, you're on a slab. You're 12 feet under. You know what I mean?
Right, but I don't know how to not. I haven't been able to fine-tune it so I don't follow that thought. I just want to let it come, and I want to let it go.
But you need to understand you are not your thoughts. I mean, you are not your thoughts, right? That's the problem. As the thinker, you're receiving these thoughts, but they're not all yours. You know, like, you know, I say, you know, I go into a little depth, and I don't want to go into, you know, too much of a tangent, but we talk about consciousness, right? So let me give you an example of what consciousness is. What I want you to do is, I don't want you to say it, but I want you to think about the word red, right? Do you have it? Now, in your head, I don't want you to say it. I want you to say the word red. Okay? Did you do it?
Yeah.
Okay? So who said it and who heard it? Because your mouth didn't say the words, and your ears physically didn't hear them.
That's wild. Because
That's
my brain
consciousness.
did.
Right. No, but that's consciousness. That's you. That's that sentience that you know you are. It's also the same thing. That's the conveyance of your thoughts as they're coming in. Like, I am not these thoughts. I'm not angry, right? You're not angry. I'm not stupid. I'm not none of these things. I'm just the recipient getting these things in. You know what I mean?
That's wild. I don't even know how to comprehend that to a degree. So when you meditate, you just let your thoughts in and you let them out, or you talk yourself through them?
Now you're just seeing them, man. You're not talking, you're not doing anything. You're just allowing them to be. Because what happens on a day-to-day is every single time we have a thought, we have to interpret it, we have to act on it. Oh man, that's a guy on a bike. What does it matter? You want to be the experiencer, right? With everything. Like right now, I'm a person in a moment. You know, I'm not Charles. I'm just this energy force experiencing this moment with you guys. I really, and I can't. That part, it becomes over hard to emphasize unless you're that part of your journey. But you know, we are not our thoughts, and we get so into all this whole dynamic that we lose sight of a lot of the most simplest parts of this existence. You know, taking it in, you know, enjoying it. You know what I mean?
Right. So with all the negative coping mechanisms that we've talked about, like the drinking, the pills, the smoking, although that's not necessarily negative, right?
Never, nope.
What are your positive coping mechanisms that you're currently applying to your life today?
So I'm, you know, like I said, I personal train. So my biggest thing is about physical fitness and wellness. I think that a lot of times with everybody, you know, we go around, we take for granted that we only have this one body. You take for instance like a car, right? You know, like you may be able to drive your car, you may be able to get some good performance out of it. But if we get a race car driver, he'll do things in that car that you've never seen done, right? And I think that's driving that to its full potential. Well, I liken that to the human body. Like I've seen people and I've seen people do amazing things. I'm like, what if I was able to take this body, and show everybody what it's really capable of? As far as the things that I think, the moves that I do, like physically the way that my body is. So, you know, again, I'm trying to, on one end, that I was hating myself and damaging myself, putting everything toxic. I'm trying to do the most healthiest, beneficial things for my body, you know, whether it be these meaningful, these like abundant conversations, or whether it be training. I train a lot, I run a lot, I do yoga, meditation.
So have you ever missed like one or two workouts in a row, and do you start feeling the negatives from it?
No. Now I'm more aware. Like before I used to work out and I told everybody it was my outlet, but it was just another way that I abused myself. I used to spend hours just because I was so upset. I'd go home. I couldn't go to sleep because I'd be so sore. So now I'm very much acutely aware of my body. You know, like, you know, the other day after a shoot that I had, I hurt my back. I tweaked my back and I'm like, oh man, I couldn't sit. I couldn't do anything. So I'm like, you know, that's time to take a chill, right? We've just been in this. We've been going hard in the paint for the last 3 months because I've had a lot of projects, a lot of things that I want to get out. But that's just a lesson that like, hey, you're being a little too hard. Let's just take a break back. So I've been walking. I usually run, you know, like a couple miles, like I run 1 mile in the morning and 1 mile in the evening. I haven't ran at all. I'm just walking, just doing easy walking, you know, like an old person. And it's been awesome.
And you're able to do that because of your positive self-talk and reinforcement, telling yourself that like you're not a failure because you're not running, you're not letting yourself down, that you're actually doing what's best for you.
I took it as the universe is telling me there's a reason I need to slow down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you into now these days?
Still the training thing, man. I write a lot of content. You know, again, I'm still trying to, you know.
When you say you write a lot of content, like what kind of content?
So I am a contributor on Men's Journal and some other columns, but just workouts, things for men over 40 that can do. Because, you know, once you hit that 40 marker, you think it's all done. You know, you think that life is over. And I'm telling him that literally to me, and my 40s is when everything went up. Like this is the healthiest I've been, the strongest, like the most physically attuned that I've been to my body. And I think that a lot of men are at that transitional point.
Okay. And I cut you off, so what else are you into?
I do that. So there's that. I'm, you know, writing a book, you know, like more or less about all the things that we talked about, because when I was in my darkest days, I had nobody to roll these things off of. You know what I mean? Like you and I are doing right now. And I think that even just this conversation, some of the things, these little anecdotes are great for somebody who's struggling, but like, oh, okay. Because when you're going through it, you don't know what's on the other side. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't go through some of the things. Like they don't know what's on the other side of that. They don't know that like, hey, all you have to do is keep on pressing. You know, there's a quote that I love, and it's like, people don't realize how close they were to success before they quit. You know, that line is there. You're right there, but then you just gave up. You know?
Right. Just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you said that quote, there's a comic that I always remember seeing, and it was like two people mining for diamonds. And one person is probably like 2 feet away, and one person is like 1 inch away. And the person at 2 feet away just kept kept going. And then the person that was 1 inch away just gave up because he didn't reap what he was looking for yet.
Right.
And so it's like the same concept.
100%. 100%. But it's very anecdotal to life. You know, there's so many things that if you just keep pressing, you know, everything that you want is on the other side. You know.
And so where do you personal train at? In Arizona?
I do, man. I do a lot of, more or less private. I do a lot of online lately just because I've been, you know, heavily trying to finish that book, and I've been taking on a lot of personal projects. But there's a few local gyms around here that I train at when I'm here. There's one in Mesa that I train at, and then my own at my house.
And so if anybody's listening that wants you to train them, where can they find you at?
So the best thing they could do right now, because it's just been, my schedule's been chaotic, I'm not really taking on any new clients, but I'm still putting out content to everybody. I'm putting out free stuff on socials, so they can reach me on those, or they can DM me if they have any questions. I'm also doing online clients, so I do a lot of online training.
And how do they find you on social media?
You can find me at on IG, Charles _J _Flanagan, Professor X, whatever. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. Don't do TikTok or Snap or any of those kid things, but you know, there's that.
And you said your book is going to be about like fighting your battles.
Yeah, man. More or less, you know, just my journey. It's it's titled, roughly titled, "The Suicide Survivor." You know, because at a young age, I had a lot of suicidal ideations, and at different points I have and wanted to check out, but there's been things along the way that have, you know, stopped me from doing that. So,
you know, I appreciate you opening up and sharing that you've had suicidal ideations. I feel like a lot of us, again, first of all, I'm going to say, you're not your thoughts, right? As you taught me.
Yes, sir.
But I feel like a lot of people have those thoughts and they're afraid to address them because they think there could be something wrong with them, right? But at the end of the day, like, one, you're not your thoughts, but two, like, you need to talk about those. You need to get it out and open. And I'm proud of you for not being ashamed or being afraid to admit that, because hopefully somebody listening can hear that story and see where you have came from to where you are now and in between, and can be inspired to keep them going, to keep pushing for another day.
Yeah. My story, I wish I could say it was born out of design, but it was actually one of my good friends committed suicide. I've lost so many people to suicide, and I'm upset, I'm hurt, I'm just... But one of the things, he never conveyed that. He was the guy, he's a good-looking guy, he was the life of the party, but never conveyed the demons he was fighting. You know, so I remember this one day, I was just going through it, and I voiced, you know, I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do, bro? I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna turn off all socials, I'm gonna deactivate them, I'm gonna have a bullet breakfast. I'm just so sick of this all, because I was going through issues with my agency, I hadn't seen you know, the normal stuff. So I go home, you know, like, you know, we dap each other up, whatever. I get a call from my best friend, and he's like, hey, we lost him. Sorry, lost who? He's like, you know, Bobby. I'm like, what? And he told me, and when he told me how he did it, I was like, you're venom, you're vile, like whatever you put out into the universe, that dude picked up. You know, what he didn't pick up is he didn't pick up the fact that you were struggling too. He didn't pick up the fact that, like, he can always go to you, right? He didn't pick up any of those, but he did pick up the venom. And again, you know, I've heard so many people tell me, even his dad, I'm close to, his dad's like, nah, that wasn't you, and, you know, he loved you, blah, blah, but if I was the man that I am now, you know, I don't know if the outcome would have been different, but I do think it would have been.
Yeah, that's a hard topic to touch, right? Because we can't look back and think what if or what could have been, right? It's like, it's almost hard for you to think that way, because I'm sure that led you down a dark road for a while as well, you know, like putting that guilt or shame or blame on yourself. But at the end of the day, like, you're not responsible for that. And even if you were the person you were today, you could have still told him, like, hey, you can lean on me. He could have cried on your shoulder. You could have dapped him up left, and the same thing could have happened. So, like, with the what ifs and that's like super detrimental.
Understood. You know, the only reason why I try to take that stance is because I think that so few of us do. You know, there's so many friends of mine that, like, I'll see somebody express out that they're hurting, and everybody's like, well, you know, somebody else will address that, not me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or that's not my issue. That's not my deal. You know, and I think that is everybody's deal. I think that if you're human, black, white, whatever, we're all connected in the same human condition. And I think that we all have a civic or moral duty to help somebody who's in pain.
Right, and even if they're not in pain, we just all need to start being nicer to everybody, and like as soft and sensitive as that shit may sound, but it's true. You don't want them treating you like a piece of shit, so why are you treating somebody else like a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah, man.
And I get that your life was hard. I get that you have your problems, right? But that's not his problem. That's not her problem. You know, I'm sorry that is how life unfolded to you, but you don't need to put that back out there.
Right. Why not? Why not be the person that breaks that cycle? Why not lead with love?
Because love's not funny. Love's not, love doesn't make you the life of the party. Love makes you the outcast, right? Because then you're the sensitive one.
The thing that I found about love, like I've struggled a lot trying to find karma, trying to understand karma, but love is instantly karmic. You say something right by somebody, I can find anybody in the street and lead with love, and instantly it's karmically gratifying. Like you say something nice, you give somebody a compliment. You look amazing today, or I want you to have a blessed day. That smile they give you, that's instant karma. You feel good, they feel good. It's a complete circle. It's a tied and complete loop, opposed to saying something bad. You never know how that'll impact that person like after you do it.
Right. And as we were talking, I just had a thought that like people don't know how to receive love, but they know how to receive hate and give hate. And that all comes back from our childhood and how our parents are, how our guardians are, friends, family, but also what we watch and listen to. So do you listen to music, or are you listening to like motivational podcasts and inspirational stuff, or?
That's a good question. Man, I love that question. So back in the day, I used to watch tons of TV and listen to music, right? I'm a big audiophile. I had all these CDs. What's a CD? But yeah, man, I used to love music, but that was also causing a lot of the issues that I had. So now, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I'm a big, Audible book consumer. So I listen to tons and tons of Audible titles. Like, let me see, in my collection, I have 200 books.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen to probably 2 to 3 books a week.
What are some of your top podcasts that you listen to?
So the one that I was just on with my guy, I liked Mike's, the Everyday Warrior podcast with Mike Sorelli. He was a Navy SEAL Team 6. He was the commander of that. Just a very dynamic presence. He always has very strong individuals, like yourself. I like Peter Tia. He has a pretty good podcast. It's medically based. When I was addicted, here's a story. So I did a podcast. Mine was more like a solo cast. But when I was addicted, I had horrible self-narration. Things that would go in my head. So I'm like, I need something in between these ears. So I love facts. I'm a fact junkie. So there's this podcast, and it's still out. It's on all the platforms. It's called Stuff You Should Know. And it's this dude that gives all these crazy, crazy facts that you're just like, as a father, listen to this podcast. You will be a rock star to your kids. So my daughter and I started listening to this, and we started loving it. And every day we go back and like, did you listen to today? And it really helped me out. So then my daughter's like, you should do yours. So I ended up doing my own kind of solo cast when, shortly after that.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
No, don't check it out. It's cringy.
Okay.
But you can't. No, I say that jokingly because I'm very weird about when people listen to my material. But yeah, you're more than welcome to. People like it.
Bro, I get that 100% because Corey, our engineer over here, he sends me
to his own material.
Exactly.
Yo, Corey,
I hate hearing my voice, bro.
I have not listened to. I don't know a single. Like my guy was like, "Hey man, I heard your last podcast." I'm like, "Really? What did I say?" Like the bites will come out. Like everything from this will come out, and people are like, "Man, it was so good. You and Josh, man, you guys killed it." I'm like, "Really? What did I say?"
Right.
Yeah. It's like a freestyle, man. Once this is done, I can't recall it.
Yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Well, our relationship won't be out of sight, but you know what I mean? Like as far as like a lot of the content, you know what I mean? So yeah.
No, I get it. Trust me. So Derek Upton, he was on our show last week,
Chef
and
is
he
my guy.
also said to tell you, he said, "What's up?"
Yeah. My guy.
Well, I could barely tell you what we talked about. Like, oh shit, that was so last week.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if I do that as to protect myself, right?
Oh, it is.
Because I have this like perfectionism in me that I'll never be able to attain or reach. So I let him do all the work.
Yeah.
Right? Like if he thinks it's good, I trust him because I'll be we'll say our podcast is an hour long. By the time I'm done, it'll be like 29 minutes because I'm like, I don't like that. It's going to be you talking too. It's going to be me hitting like 1 or 2 words and then it's all you.
No. Make sure that I'm like 20% of it and the sound bites, the majority of it's him. Because I'm the same way. Like, if you looked at it in my pages,
you can't both not talk.
Yeah. What you can do is you just get the dopest sound bites, and it could just be like a cool reel, right? Of like just
Right.
hard sound bites. But no, I get that. It is we're our own biggest critics. Whether it be the things that I post or pictures, I never like anything that I put out. I like the process. Let me be more constructive about that. I love the process and I like a lot of the final product, but I'm just not, I'm just not that person. Like there's a lot of people that I know, they're like, man, check out my podcast and da-da-da-da. I'm like, I put out a podcast, you can check it out. You don't want to, that's cool too.
Yeah, dude, it's so hard to like hype up my own show, right? Like I'm ready for this to grow and take off to the next level because I know I've been progressing. I started off on Zoom by myself drinking. And now I'm here inside a dispensary lobby talking to great guests and great human beings, right? My favorite part is, though, I get to share your fucking story. And that's what I argue with him all the time. He's like, you need to be on there. You need to talk more. And I was like, but the whole point of this is, one, it's supposed to be like a genuine buddy check. Mm-hmm. Like you're calling your buddy from high school you haven't talked to in a while, but
Facts.
you still, like, you pick up like nothing left off, right? But at the end of the day, this is your story. So I'm going to narrate you or guide you to what I want to talk about. But I want to hear your side of it. This is all about you and who you are as a person. And then we can get into whatever business venture you want to fucking talk about. But like, I need to share your story. I need to make that connection because that's what's going to help save other people. Because they're going to realize, oh shit, man, this dude may have like a fucking 6-pack, but he's also human and eats cookies on Sundays or some shit like that, right?
Pancakes.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
They're probably protein pancakes, though. They don't really
stop, bro. I go to Snooze, I go to Over Easy, I kill it. Like when I go eat, people almost look at me crazy. He's not gonna eat all that. Like almost like a fat kid, like who's eating too much. But that's my thing. I'm a foodie, man. Like contrary to popular belief, I live this lifestyle so I can consume and do the things that I like to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love food, bro.
To be honest with you, he's only talking about his one cheat meal a month that he allows, and he's trying to act like it's often.
I wish.
I want to get into something a little serious, and I'm not going to ask you to explain more on it if you don't want to. Mm-hmm. But you keep mentioning that you haven't talked to your daughter for a while. I was curious if, like, one thing that I went through a similar situation with my wife and all that with our older kids. And during the hard times, I wonder, like, do you write a journal of like just thoughts you want to tell her everything every day? So one day when you guys reconnect and get back to where you are, you can be like, look, I want to let you know I've always thought about you. I've never not thought about you. I never not cared about you. And like, here are my thoughts and here are things that I wanted to share with you throughout our life experiences that we just missed out on.
It's weird, man. I went through a bunch of different things. Like, unlike most people, all I ever wanted to be was a father. I came from a single father home and, single parent home, and I didn't like that. My dad worked so much, he didn't have, a lot of time to spend with us. So I always wanted to be a father so I could do it the right way, so I never envisioned this was gonna happen. So the first year, all I did was write down journals. I text her every single day. And the first year she would read them, but she wouldn't respond. Second year, she might read a couple of them and then not respond. So I think the thing that I did now is I've realized it helped me align or come into who I am, right? Like, I'm like, if you don't want to talk to me, I'm going to make it so impossible for you not to see who I am. Like, one of the things that her mom tried to alienate her from and hated the thing about me was the modeling, some of the dynamic of who I was. So I'm like, you hate it? Oh, stop. Now I'm just going to go even more harder. Like, I'm going to do so much where you can't help but to not see that I'm your father, right? So if anybody says like, oh man, like I have a national ad coming out that when you go into every Dick's Sporting Goods, you'll see a big, ugly cutout of my fucking mug. But that is so my daughter, my father, like when she goes there, they'll be like, yo, I saw your dad. What? So no, man, it's there's nothing more now that I have other than just the desire. I don't have any notes. I think when I would do that, it was suppressing the thoughts opposed to putting them out there. Like, now it's more guerrilla. It's everything that I do is with the intention that you're going to see who your father is. You're going to know you can't cast me out. Like, my blood is going through your veins. Like, you're Flanagan, you're mine. You're my daughter. You know what I mean? So, I've had different people tell me to reach out and to do this, but one of the realizations that I've had, like, she's a young lady now, and you can't make anybody do anything. Like, the last thing that I want to do is force a relationship that she doesn't want. And people are like, well, that's your daughter. It's a human being. Like, to you, it's just a girl. To you, it's just a girl, right? To me, yes, the title of my daughter. But if it was anybody else, you guys would be like, man, can't you see she has no desire to connect with you? So, again, whether or not this is permanent, I try not to think so, but, at this point, it's a relationship that is just not going to happen.
Right. And when the time's right, things will come back together. But yeah, like you said, you can't force anything, because then she's not gonna see that you're forcing things because you care. She's gonna see that you're forcing things because you're her dad,
Right.
And probably whatever negative stuff that mom talked about you.
Right.
A little same topic, but not to include your daughter. Do you journal at all for your mental health?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that something? When did you pick up journaling?
I want to say one of my, he's kind of like a mentor, but he's like a big brother. It would have been the second month of our training. I have a client. He's a producer. He's a 7-time Grammy-winning producer. He's a badass, right? And I was asking him about his story. And a lot of the things that you think happen to these people, you think they're so like accidental and they just bump into things. But what this guy showed me is he showed me journals from way back. Like, I'm going to meet this person. I'm going to do this. Everything that he did was written down and it was very intentional.
So manifest?
So I was like, nah, dog, you're wrong. And, I didn't believe him, right? So I started journaling, right? So that next month of me journaling, he shows me his journal again. And we started revisiting. Like, you remember we talked about this? Check, done. Remember we talked about this? Done. I'm like, yo, this is crazy talk. But it also helped me coalesce and understand some of the things that I was really feeling. When they're in your head, it's in your head and you can't really, get it out. So yeah, no, it was wild, man. And from there on, I journal. I have a whiteboard where I put my goals. So it's been a completely different thing. That is probably the thing that I would tell any male to do. Start. You don't even have to say anything amazing. Like sometimes I might put down a statement, but just journal. Just put things down on the tablet.
So when you first started journaling, were you just journaling to get your thoughts on paper and out of your head?
Yeah.
So I've just started a new therapist 2 weeks ago, and I've been failing on doing my homework, and I know I'm failing myself, not anybody else, right? But for some reason, I don't know what it is. It's so fucking simple to just sit down and write, but it's really not. At least not to break the hump, right? Because I haven't got to it yet. I keep putting it off, or I'll say I'll do it later, knowing damn well I'm just going to forget to do it later. And then I had therapy Tuesday, and I was like, fuck, I almost don't want to go because I didn't do my homework, you know? And so now I'm ashamed of not doing what I'm supposed to be doing to better myself, and I got to go talk to this man and tell him I didn't do my homework.
The homework and all that makes it seem like a task. Like, I think what I guess I would ask you is, what stops you? What do you think that you have to put on the paper?
So I think I just want to put my thoughts down. I think eventually I want to get it scripted where I am manifesting and doing all that. But to begin with, I just want to put my thoughts down. And I think internally, subconsciously, I'm scared of my own thoughts. But I also believe or also understand through all my training or mental health knowledge that as soon as I face those thoughts are going to be gone, or they're going to change into what I need them to become.
Facts.
So I'm literally just holding myself back because I'm scared. Like worst case scenario, my wife reads the books. Yeah, I'll feel, I almost don't want to write certain things because of that. But like, I also trust her enough that she's not going to go read that because she's going to know it's personal in that, I think that's just another excuse I'm allowing myself to believe so I don't start it. Because I think that's the demon talking. I call them demons, right?
Oh, yep.
I think that's the demon talking to me. Like, don't do this. Your wife's going to find out. Or don't do this. Whatever's going to happen, right? But in reality, the demon's like, don't do this because I'm going to have to disappear.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. The thing about the demon, as bad as we want to call him, because I have mine too. I have the, it's literally what I call him but he's also a part of my life. He's part of my journey. He's done a lot of the dirty work. So to alienate and to cast him out, he was also a part of my purpose. That's the thing that I had to come to the realization of. Even the bad sides of you are necessary. And that's the thing that we struggle with. I've done some things that I'm like, man, that you talk about shame, that's what put me in a bigger hole. But I had to realize, none of us are perfect. When you said about, sometimes you have a hard time doing the homework, one of the other things for me, because I'm not the best writer, and that was, also a deeper struggle, is I would audible. You can do an audible note. You can get a voice journal and be like, hey, today, and a lot of mine was how I felt. It was literally like when I was younger, I used to have a behavior. I have a behavior check or whatever. I got a green card when I was good. I got a red card when I was bad. So it was the first month was today was a good day. Today, I woke up and got everything I wanted to do accomplished. Today was a bad day. I did nothing and I sat in the bed and I cried. Today was a little bit better day. I cried, but at least I got some stuff done. Like, I'll show you. That's literally what it was like. It wasn't anything profound or like lengthy. It was just, I just gotta, just sit.
And this is another thing that kind of confuses me, right? Like, do I want to write down my thoughts, or do I need to change what my thoughts are and write down positives? Like, I guarantee if I'm going to write something down, it's going to be all the negatives that I feel in my life or that I'm thinking. But then if I'm writing it down, I'm living it. I'm letting it out. So
Exactly. You're not sitting there allowing it to consume you. You're not allowing it to ruminate and keep that vicious circle.
Right, I get that. But what I don't get is, like, if I feel that if I write negative, it's going to stay negative. It's going to stay negative instead of just letting it go and be done. So am I supposed to, like, make myself write positive, like find a positive in the day and, like, focus on that? Or is it okay? I guess the situation dictates, right, and to each his tone. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't want to keep fueling that negativity. That eventually I need to change my thought process. And if I keep writing negative, my thought process is going to stay negative, is how I feel.
Right.
So do I force myself to find the positives and only write positives?
No, because life is not always positive. So you have to deal with, right? And what you're wanting to become, that will eventuate as time goes on. Like right now, you're still not able to compartmentalize and even accept some of the things that you're feeling. So it's important to be able to get those out because that conveyance isn't always there. Once you start getting them out in a normal flow, like routinely, then you can start addressing, hey, you know what? Now after repetition, I'm noticing that these thoughts, there's a trend here. These aren't so positive. Then you'll the trend will be, let me start writing things positive. Right now, you can't even go there because we haven't even started a pattern of at least putting our thoughts on paper. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the guys that, come to my gym and they want to train. Man, I want to be fit like you. I'm like, okay, well, stop. Before you can be like me, there's a myriad of things we gotta do. One, check your health. You gotta crawl before you can walk. Is more or less what everything has its stages. You know what I mean? And this is at the infancy, and there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Well, Charles, I could talk to you for hours, and I'm definitely going to have you back on the podcast if you're interested.
Yeah.
But for today, I'm going to wrap it up. Do you have any saved rounds, anything I missed that you would like to address before we do that?
No, I saw your podcast before Chef was on it, and I've seen it with some other people. What I want to tell you is I absolutely love what you're doing. Why I was compelled to do this is that as much as I hate sharing my story, it's important to have someone who's a good storyteller, who's receptive, and then that's what I believe that you are. So continue on the path, bro. I look forward to seeing you in another year and in your own studio and having me back.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I believe it.
You did reach out to me too, so that was
it was intentional.
It means a lot, mm-hmm. And I genuinely appreciate that, and I look forward to continue to grow and continue our friendship and our relationship and having you back in our own studio. All right, appreciate it.